Yeah. Thank you so much, Kasim. And hey, learners. So, hope you people are the same who joined me for the previous session one on track, right? And this is going to be a continuation of the session one. I would just like to put up an introduction still. I'm not sure that whether we are all the same connects who are here for the last week or do we have any new connects. So I'm Feroz. I'm a Microsoft MVP on Azure and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer as well. And the founder and director of CodeSizzler, a Microsoft vendor partner firm. And we take care of consulting, we take care of migrations for Microsoft moving the workloads from on-premise to Azure cloud environment and setting up hybrid cloud strategies. And we also work with huge chains like BCCI. We work with Emirates. We manage the Skyline application of Emirates, and we work with IoT projects as well. So those are those are few handful of projects where we work with AI, and apart from that, we are also working with migration on migrating the workloads and SAP workloads, all those things. So taking the consideration of all the learners having much focus to be on DevOps track, this tech walk has been planned for the entire DevOps environment with infrastructure, having infrastructure audience on mind and developer audience as well on the mind. So this session for today, okay, I will not stick to the slides because the tech walk has been completely planned for hands-on. Okay, so this session or the entire session of tech walk is set to be with the hands-on. You will not find any sort of slides. We will be sharing the slides which can speak about the concept because this is a level higher course which speaks about containers, how you can host a container, how you can do CI and CD operations with Azure DevOps towards your container environment. So we will not be using slides, but still we'll be sharing the documents. We'll be sharing the slides as well, which can speak about the context over the Teams. Okay, so please be active on Teams and check the recordings as well. People who are new to the session, please make sure that this is the next three series which we are going to work. Session three is going to be infra control and compliance planning with security strategies on Azure DevOps. And session four is going to be about provisioning the Azure resource, a different sort of Azure resource that we have, and working on with ARM templates. And session five is going to be on config management. And all these sessions have been planned for the same timing on the upcoming Saturdays that we have. So with this, let me kick on towards the Azure DevOps.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Firoz. Just one thing. Please kindly be on mute. Okay, we are recording the session and it's for everyone. If you miss something, you can just click on raise your hand, like the icon or the Teams, and we can get back to you on those things. You can have the queries later with the speaker. But please try to off your cameras and off your mics. So it will be a kind of I will no I will not have any I will just remove that person who is getting unmute. Sorry for that. So please I request again to be on mute. Thank you. Yes, Guru.
Yeah. Thanks, Kasim. Thanks for bringing that. Actually, I was actually up to put up that because I came across many messages from the other learners who are saying that we feel a lot of disturbance when there's a unmute that goes on. Okay, cool. Thank you. So this topic for today is going to be AKS on Azure DevOps. Okay, the previous session which we were discussing on, we were discussing about what is Azure DevOps, right? And why we need an Azure DevOps, how Microsoft is working on the DevOps environment as such. We were discussing about the breaking of wall between the development and the operations team that we had and breaking the hurdles that we have between the development and the operations team, how you can manage your automation using Chef and Puppet using DevOps, and how you can do the release management, how you can manage the build, managing the boards, right? Managing the projects that you have with Kanban boards. So all those things we were discussing on the previous session. And by the end of the session, we were also working on with hosting an ARM template. We were developing an ARM template, and we tried deploying an ARM template from Visual Studio environment and from the Azure portal as well using Azure DevOps. And today we are going to work on AKS on Azure DevOps. So AKS on Azure DevOps, AKS is nothing but the Kubernetes service, or I can simply say containers. Microsoft has been working with a long time. Microsoft has followed up with a long time strategy on working with containers, and now we have finally come up with a streamlined environment for containers. We are at no more days where Microsoft says that we are not supporting for open source or anything. We are in the hands of open source. We are with hand by hand where we support open source integrations and we support customers who wants to host the workloads towards the open source environment. So this AKS, that is your Kubernetes service, or now it's called as a container instance, is where Microsoft supports for two major platforms. One is Kubernetes, and the other one is said to be Docker. So there's no more something called as a virtual machine that we're gonna use. I'm not saying now, but it might be another like 2 or 3 years that we're gonna take it, and the term which we call it as virtual machine is gonna be completely removed, where we will be working completely on the container environment. The reason is the container is the one which gives you a much lightweighted one. So you speak about CI and CD, or you speak about any standalone applications that has to be hosted, and you need to like you have to do some update management or anything. In that case, you no need to worry when you speak about containers. You're just going to have the executable package, and the agile process is going to be very simple when you compare it towards your virtual machine that you have. So this demo that we are going to work today is going to take you across with three things. So the takeaway would be about build a custom Docker image, okay, using Azure DevOps. I'm sorry here. The second is about pushing and storing the Docker images on ACR. That's your Azure Container Registry. And finally, about deploy and run the images. So the terminologies that you need to understand here is that I would better say that you need to know about what a container is. Let's make it very simple. You should have heard something called as virtualization, right? There was an environment where we used to work on called as Hyper-V. So you go to a Hyper-V, you will say that I need a Windows Server machine, Windows Server 2019 data center, and it will be available as a guest OS, and it's going to virtualize. It's going to virtualize towards the hardware that you're going to select, like DS1 underscore V2 or anything, and you're going to run the host image that you have. So now when I say that I need to perform any backup operations, or when I need to say that any upgrade or patch management that I need to do, then it becomes high in weight, right? The image of the OS and the image of the application becomes higher in weight. I would say very simply that when you speak about a Windows Server 2019, there are plenty of images, like application images, I would say, your calculator, your paint, right? These are all some application softwares which you have never used on a server machine. But still, you're just provisioning up with Microsoft's image so that no other go you're going to get the application. So now what this open source guys like Docker or Google and all these people did is that they came up with an environment where they said that you just pick the flavor of your image alone. You just say that you need a Hyper-V with Windows Server, that's it. You just say that you need a Nginx with Ubuntu, that's it. And it might be using IIS or it might be using Nginx. You're going to host your web application to be run. That's all. You're not going to call any sort of application software which makes the application to be high in weight as such. So this was completely broken up. This was completely broken up where it made lightweighted. And ideally, it supports you for backup operations. It supports you on cost metrics. It supports you for agile operations. Okay. So that's exactly where we move towards an environment called container. And there with hand, Microsoft supports you for both the rockstars, that is your the Docker, which comes with a virtualization engine, which we call it a Swarm. Okay, Swarm is your virtualization engine. And for Google, we have Kubernetes, where K8 itself is an engine. Okay, K8 itself is a Kubernetes engine. And you can store all these images either with a Docker hub, or you can use Kubernetes hub, or you can even simply say ACR, Azure Container Registry. So you can store it on the Azure Container Registry environment. You can call the image. You can host the image to be up. So it can be done with any sort of push and pull at any time. Okay. So that's like two things that you need to know. And let's get on to work with the demo. Okay, of deploying an application, okay, deploying a Docker app, or let me see, deploying a Docker app on Azure using Azure DevOps. So this lab will focus on building a custom Docker image using DevOps, okay, and pushing and storing the Docker images, and to use the Docker container registry as well. So let's go here and let me share the link. So for the first time, you need to sign up. Okay, so let me say sign in. And let's select the organization. You people should be familiar with this if you have worked on the previous session. So you will create an organization, and inside the organization, you can have a project. Okay, so let's select the organization, AzureNinjas Tech Walk, and I will give up a project name here. I'm sorry, excuse me. Well, let me say AzureNinjas, or okay, DearAzure session 2. And here you can find the template. Can you find this? We have different templates that we have. And I'm going to use the Docker one. Let's say create the project. And you can find the project gets created now. So now I told you that I'm going to host a web app, right? I'm going to host an image using web app. So what I need here is that I need a, okay, let's make it here. I need a web app, okay, for containers. And I need a SQL Server with database. And of course, I need a ACR, Azure Container Registry. Okay, so web app for containers where I'll be using Docker. So to execute these things, let's first go and I will say that I need to create a resource group. Let this get created. I'll go to the Cloud Shell and using bash, let's create a resource group here. So AZ group create. Let's say, okay, Docker resource group. So this command helps you to create a resource group first. And inside this resource group, I'm going to create this container registry, okay, for the web app. So let's create ACR. I'll say ACR create. Excuse me. Excuse me, go on mute, please. So I'll say DearAzure ACR. And the resource group is going to be Docker resource group. And this is going to be a standard SKU. And that creates ACR for you. Makes sense, this name should be unique. Okay. I'll give up the commands by the end of the session. Okay, I'll put it on the chat. So now let's create a web app for containers. So first I need to create a Linux app service plan. Let's say AZ app service plan create. DearAzure, okay, apps. Linux. Once when this gets created, no, we will create a custom Docker container. Okay. I'm sorry, excuse me. Right. Now let me say AZ web app create. I'm going to create a Docker container web app. DearAzure, okay, let's say web app. So the app service plan, the name which we created before, DearAzure apps. Excuse me. Docker image to be used as latest one. Okay, test image. So here you can find that we are getting a custom Docker container web app to be created. Sorry, go on mute, please. I'll stick to your questions by the end of the session, please. Okay. All right. So the ACR has been created. The Docker container web app has been created. And now let's create the SQL Server and database. Okay, so this one. We need a SQL Server and we need a database as well. So go here and you can say AZ SQL Server create. Okay, DearAzure SQL. Let's call the resource group. I'm sorry. So my SQL Server name is going to be DearAzure SQL. And region will be Southeast Asia. Once when this SQL Server gets created, we will try creating a database inside this SQL Server. Excuse me. Sorry. Okay, so here you can find the SQL Server has been created. And now let's try creating the database, okay, inside this SQL Server. So you can say AZ SQL DB create, okay, with the resource group that you have, and call the SQL Server name that you have. So my SQL Server name here is DearAzure SQL, okay, and name of the DB is MHCDB. Well, so the DB is getting created. And once when this DB gets created, we will try whitelisting the IP address where we will create a firewall rule so that you can access the Azure SQL Server. Excuse me.
Pod no did you sing?
Eventually, you can even keep your questions to be written on the chat panel. If you have any questions, you can keep it written on the chat panel, please. Just to make sure that you will not forget the questions. All right, and now let's create a firewall. We will create a firewall rule for the SQL Server which has been created. So here you can find that I'm giving up the open IP address, the start IP and the end IP is 0. And let's give the SQL Server name, right? So DearAzure SQL. Let's do that. So this firewall has been updated. And let's update the connection strings as well. Okay, the web apps connection string. So you can find here, I'm calling the SQL Server connection string to be updated on the web app. So my DB name is, sorry, SQL Server name is DearAzure SQL, and my app service is DearAzure Web App. There we go. So this has been updated. Now you can go, I would say, let's go to the Azure portal. And let's click on resource groups. Sorry here. Can you find this? The resource group which we created, Docker resource group. And just over there, you can find we have this container registry which we created. So this container registry is used to store the images privately. And you have the app service plan and the app service, which is used for web app. The Docker images are deployed to containers using this app service and the app service plan. The next comes your SQL Server. You can find the SQL Server, which is used to host the database. And the SQL database is used to host the web application that we're going to give up. So with this, let me go up. I will take few credentials. Okay, I just need the SQL Server name. I need the login server name for the ACR, all those things. So let's go to the container registry, and I will copy the login server name. Let's copy this login server. So login server details is here. And I do need the SQL Server name. So let's go up here and I'll say SQL Server. Yeah, let's copy the SQL Server name. There we go. Any questions until this? Yeah, I'm just done with the phase of deployment alone, configuring the infra alone. I'm about to move for Azure DevOps to do the CI and CD operations with the AKS. So before getting on to that, I would like to know if you have any questions.
This is Siddharth. Wanted to know what we are trying to achieve here. We have created web app and that will be deployed under Azure Container Registry, right? And then we'll be, so if you can just make the connect of why we use this, what we'll be doing. So in a short way.
Siddharth, I hope you were there when I was discussing about this takeaway, right? I'm here trying to deploy an application, okay, let's say an ASP.NET application, okay, and the key takeaway here is to ensure that you can use Azure DevOps to host your images with the web app for containers, okay, and we will also make sense about how you can do the CI and CD operations using Azure DevOps environment towards your containers. So as a parameter, I need I need these services. I need web app for containers. Okay, so I have spinned up a web app, and for the web app, I have the app service plan as well. And I have also created a SQL Server database because my application, which I'm going to use, the template link which I gave you, right? It's going to come up with a database. So I need a SQL database for that. I have spinned up that, and to store the image, I need ACR, my private images, and that's exactly where we have this ACR as well.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. I'm sorry. Any other questions?
That's fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So, well, with this, let's go with configuring the CI and CD. Okay, so you can go to the DevOps environment and you can say navigate to the project. Okay, so let's say navigate to project here. And this is the project which we have created. And this is using a template. So now you can find the required resources or provision. The build and release definitions would be available over here. Okay, in pipeline, you can find releases and you can find the pipeline environments as well. These definitions need to be manually configured with the new information. And we will go with the build operations and we will give up the build definition, which can be edited to connect with the subscription. Okay, so let's go here for the pipelines. I'll click here. Can you find this? We have the build. So let's select the build, and I can say edit this build so that you can connect with the subscription. Let's say edit. I'm sorry. So here you can find we have 4 different sort of services that you can find in the run services. I mean, you can find in Docker we have run service, build, push, and you also have the publish artifact. That's your extensions that you have. Speaking one by one, the run service that you find here is where it prepares the suitable environment by restoring the required packages that you need. And this build service is where it builds your web image that you're going to give, the web application image that you're going to give. And push service is where it's going to push the image tagged with any variable that you're going to define. And finally, you're going to share the database deployment to Azure DevOps artifacts using publish artifact environment. Let's go one by one. I will click on get sources. It's going to call from Azure repos. Okay, get. And see, it's going to be from the master. Let's say run service, and I'll connect with the subscription now. So let's say subscription here and authorize.
Feroz, are you using empty job or are you using any dedicated template?
No, I'm using a dedicated template for this.
Can you show that which template you're using, if you don't mind?
I have given you the link. Can you just look for it, please? It's there on the chat panel.
So the chat panel is disabled for.
Disabled for us, not able to see the chat panel for us.
Okay. Dinesh, just give me a moment. Let me not break the flow. I will complete this demo and then I will give you the link on the Teams itself. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. All right. People who are not able to find, the chat panel, you're supposed to be added up on the Teams. So in case if you have joined for the first time, or if you're not a part of the Teams channel that we have, then please send a request to the event manager and he can help you out on adding towards the Teams. Well, so here you can find I have the ACR and I have called the subscription that we have. Let's call the ACR which we created. See, when I go to the resource groups, let's minimize this. I'll say resource group. You can find Docker RG. And there you can find the container registry, DearAzure ACR. So let's select this and I would say go for DearAzure ACR. And here is your Docker Compose file that we have. Well, let's save this. And then next comes your build services. Let's go to the build service and I will again call the subscription. Let's call the container registry as well. And the next comes your push services. Excuse me. Right. I'm sorry. So once when all these things are done, you can go to the release section and you can check the pipelines, okay, where you can find the tasks that has been added up. Okay, so let's go up here to the release. And there you can find this Docker release. Okay, let's click on edit and we can add the tasks here. Can you find this? So we have tasks and you can add the task. You can just give the edit pipeline option and you can say like the DB deployment on which it has to be hosted on. Okay, and web app deployment on which OS it's going to run. So those things can be given up over here. Let's go through a task and I'll select this. So here for the DB deployment, let's select the agent pool. Okay, it's going to be from Azure Pipelines. we are going to release the pipeline using Azure pipelines. Okay, the code that you have. So let's say Azure pipelines, and the agent specification you can select here. See, we are gonna use Visual Studio 2017. Okay, to run it across. So you can go up here and you can say I need a VS 2017 with Windows 2016. Okay, that's fine. Let's select this. The next comes, once when you do this, no, you can go for executing it. Here, you can find the subscription. You need to call the subscription.
Firoz, you might need to a bit slow because there is a latency in your speaking and on the window. So we are not catching at
Yes.
the same time.
Oh,
Yes, Firoz.
Firoz,
yep.
can you just please repeat the last statement? I mean, from the task window where we went, there was lag, so I couldn't, correlate where
Yes.
you went.
Okay, sure. So you can go to the tasks here, okay, and you can click on the deployment process that you have. So we will get landed up on this page, or I would even say that you can go to the release. This is going to help you out, the release that you can find here, right? This release pipeline is going to help you out, which speaks about the agents that can be provided and where the web application is going to be hosted as such. So go to the release and click on edit. Sorry. And now you can give the details for the agents. So click on tasks and you can find your developer environment and you're going to spin up the deployment process. So click on DB deployment. And here in the DB deployment, it should be hosted VS 2017. Okay. And for the web app deployment, okay, you can find here we have the web app deployment. You need to use hosted Ubuntu 16. The reason is here, the web app which we created, can you find this? The app service plan, this is running on Linux. It's running with Ubuntu. And that's exactly what I have picked here. Okay, hosted Ubuntu. The next comes your Azure SQL. You need to connect for the subscription. So select this and say which subscription you need to use as such. So let's select this. And yeah, that's good. Let's go for the app service as well. And we can select the subscription here. So that's another subscription with the app service plan. See, if you are going to host it on a staging environment, then you can say that you will deploy it towards a slot. Okay, but here I'm going to host it towards a master one. So that's not a problem. Well, so once after configuring these things, you can go up and you can say save this. Okay, you're saving the variables that you have. And you, again, once have to check for the ACR credentials, you need to check for the SQL Server database credentials, all those things. So go to variables, you can find the user credentials which has been given. Click on variables here, and you can find ACR. You remember we took this credentials, the login server. We took the login server, we took the SQL Server, all this credentials. So this has to be updated here. So let me say my ACR name is the login server name. Let's copy it here. And my database name, let me make it once again, MHC, and I give it as DB. And the password was, give it up here. Login, it's set to be SQL admin. SQL Server name, you can copy it from here. Let's copy the SQL Server name. I will give it to you. There we go. And now let's click on save. We have updated the variables. So this is about configuring the CI and CD pipelines. Okay. Now, excuse me. Yeah. So now you have configured this CI and CD. You have set the deployment pipeline. You have set the OS on which it has to be hosted. You have given up the SQL credentials, okay, and your web app credentials and everything. Now let me initiate the build and deployment. Okay. So to do this, you can find files here. In repos, you can find files. Can you find this? We have files here. And this is all the script that we have from the template. I'm sorry here. Excuse me. So with this, let me take it forward. I would say let's go to the source. And let's open up the myhealth.web. Let's go to the views. You can find the index page here. Let's make the changes here. Home. Yeah, index.cs. See, this is the page which we are going to publish. Okay. And instead of join us, I will say contact us. Okay. So let's remove this. I would say. Okay, edit. Contact us. Okay, we have done this change and let's say commit. So you're going to come into the master. Let's say commit the operation. And once when this is done, you can click on the build and you will see the build operations queue. Okay, so let's go up here and I will say build. Can you find this? It's configuring the pipeline and it will ask you where it has to be built as such. So I can simply go to the pipelines, or I can go here. You can find the build. Okay, just now before 26 seconds. Okay, and this can be released. Like when I click here, you can find the status here. See, running. The build is running now, and it has an update on index.cs HTML, the one which we gave now. So let me click here again. And you can find the images running. Let's go up here. And this will generate and push the Docker image of the web application to the ACR. See, pulling from Microsoft ASP.NET Core build, and it will push it to the ACR environment that we have. You can find the status here. Let's wait for it. Sorry.
So till this happens, just one thing, Feroz, can you, whenever complete this, can you please mention how this MHC Docker from the repo you brought it? I was just wanted to understand.
No,
So
this is a template. This is a template, and when I initiated the project, right, I got a build file to be added up. So whenever you create a solution file in Azure DevOps, you will get a release and build pipelines to be added up.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So let's say like whenever, let's say if we this Azure DevOps, this master is we are using in a TFS. So whenever we are like committing or checking in some of the code in a TFS, it's gonna automatically trigger this Azure pipeline and deploy in container.
Yes, you're right. Okay, so here you can find the run service has been completed and it's starting the build service as well.
Feroz?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah. Could you please tell us once again this what does the run services and build services and push services do? Here.
Okay, you're asking on the pipelines or?
Oh, here in the execution, we are seeing that run services is completed, right? What it happens in run service and what it happens in build service. Yeah, could you please tell us?
Okay, good. See, the run services. Yeah, The run service is where it's going to call the packages that we have in the solution file, and it's going to run it on the, let's say it's going to call the extensions. Speaking in a .NET environment, you might be having a NuGet package and everything, no? So those things has to be run. So this running up the NuGet packages or running up the dependency files that you have, all these things will be happening on the run service. And build is, you're going to build the solution. The build will generate and it will push the image of the web application towards the ACR environment. Run is about, I repeat, the run is about, you're going to call the NuGet packages, you're going to call the dependency library files that you have. You're going to run it once. And build is about, you're going to host the image, Docker image of the web application to the ACR. Are you clear?
So when
Yes,
did
Feroz.
the creation of the Docker image happened?
We initiated this with a template. I hope you could see the chat link, right? I gave you a template link.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that is missing. That's why. Okay.
Yes.
Feroz, I have one question.
Yeah, please.
So how the dependency management happens? Like if the application needs the dependencies, right?
I'm sorry, there's a background noise. Yeah, if I'm not wrong, your question is about dependency management on Azure or hello.
Sorry, there is a lot of disturbance. I just wanted to repeat my question one more time. So basically, like for any application, whether it is a web app or desktop application, like if the application needs the dependencies, we usually like if it is a .NET project, we usually download the dependencies from NuGet store, right? So how that's gonna happen? Like where that step was invoked?
Okay, cool. This was actually covered on the previous session. You can find here, you can find here, we have artifacts. Can you find this? Just next to the test plans, you have artifacts.
Yes.
So this artifacts will help you to call the packages that you have. It might be your jar files or it might be your .NET files that you have. Anything can be called using this artifacts. So this is exactly where you will do all your package management on Azure DevOps.
Cool. I mean, I have another question. So basically, if the Azure DevOps dashboard that we have in the current organization, when it doesn't show the artifacts module, so what does it mean? So they didn't get that service included in their enterprise model?
There are actually two things. One is that you should have the privileges, like in role-based access control. You also need the permission for the service principal to add the artifacts. So if you have not been given with that privileges, chances are there you might not find the artifacts. That's one thing. The second thing is that if the artifacts has not been added up on your project, right, within your organization, here you can find that. See, this is a project, okay, and inside this project, it should have been added up. So if that was not done, then again, chances are there that you will not find the artifacts.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Thanks.
So I have a small question actually.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just give me some 10 minutes? I will complete this. It's almost done. I just need to show you about the ACR from the portal, and then I'll stick back to the questions, please.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Excuse me. So here, let's go to the Azure portal, and I will just open up the app service that we have. Okay. So here you can find this is the app service. Okay. And you can find the image source has been given with the ACR. You have the image which has been available over there as well. So we need to configure those things. You can go to the container settings. Can you find this? And there you can configure the ACR. So let's say I'll go to the Azure. Yeah. So this is the one which I told you. You can have the images either on the ACR, or you can even have it on the Docker Hub, or you can have it in the private registry. Now, when I say Docker Hub, it's going to be from hub.docker.com. Okay, and you will have the image and everything. ACR is the one which we created now. So let's call the ACR and we will call the image where it has been pushed across. So go to ACR, call the registry which we created. Here is your image as well. So go to the tag, latest. Well, that's okay. And okay, let's click on save for this. So this has been updated. Now you can go to the Azure Container Registry. See, I will go here. I will open up the Azure Container Registry, and in repositories, you can find the application which we have hosted. So repo, and you can find my health. And inside that, there'll be two repositories, latest and the third one that we have, the one which was recently built and committed. So let's click here, and you can find the image. Let's now go to the release pipelines, and we can find the images which are available. And you can also browse the URL. See, go to pipelines. You can click on release. You can find the list of releases which has been initiated. See, just now we did this. It was by 9:45. Okay, it's some 6 minutes before, and you can find it here.
Firoz, we are unable to see your screen. Now you told us about
No, I don't.
Azure DevOps.
See, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's no internet issue from my side because we have a bot here which can raise up the signal if my internet goes down. But how about others, Qasim? Any update from you?
Yeah, even I am facing the same issue.
Yeah, even me.
Yeah, now we are able to see it.
I can see the dashboard with the release module on it.
Yeah.
Just now visible to everyone.
So there is a latency of at least a 3 to 4 second minimum, and that is maybe it's not due to your bot or something, but there is a latency. Yeah.
So can you just repeat what you did from Azure portal to where you went? I see there's a release tab in pipeline.
Okay, so here in the Azure portal, right, you can find that we have ACR. I need to configure the ACR where we have the image. So I came here to the web app which we hosted. We were there on the container settings, and we have called the registry where we have the image which was built using Azure DevOps environment. Okay, so we have saved this. Now we will try going up to the URL so that you can find the web application. So when I click on this, you can find the web app which was built from the Azure DevOps environment. This might take some time. Let's hold on. Excuse me. So weird. I'll be on mute. Eventually, you can even keep questions to be posted, please. Okay. This might take some, for the first time, it might take some 1 or 2 minutes.
So if the time permits, Feroz, would you mind to create the some pictorial representation of the architecture, what we have done, that will help us to grab and digest?
As I told you before, I actually have a document and I have the slide as well, but this is a tech walk which we are planning for hands-on alone. Okay, so be active with the Teams channel. We will be sharing the architecture and we will share the document as well, a step-by-step document about how you can host a multi-containerized application. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry. Oh yeah. Can you find this? So we made it changes, right? Instead of join us, we gave it as contact us.
Feroz, your screen has gone. Can you please reshare it?
Yes.
Is it visible now?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So here you can find instead of join us, it's contact us, right? We made the changes here. In let's go to the repos and in files. I'm sorry, come on. Yeah, my health.web, and there you can find it on the views. We have home, and here you can find. Say it as contact us. Can you find this? Home, contact us, and tour inside. So that's what you can find it here. So this is how we can just initiate the CI build and the deployment to the code commit that you have. So that's the takeaway for today. You can let me know if you have any questions. And in case if you're trying the demo, please make sure that once when you complete the demo, you need to delete the services which you have created. Okay. Yeah, I'm now open to the questions. Please go ahead.
Feroz, I have a couple of questions. The first question is how you are managing the SQL files deployment. I've seen that like you have created the connection strings and the variables, but let's say like for every push, we have some certain SQL files. How that's going to be achieved? That is my first question. Second question, in the portal.devazure.com, you have created some services like creating Azure web app and all that stuff. So can you, give it, I mean, like why we are creating those? Can you give me a step-by-step, what is the need of that and why we are creating those? If you could explain that, that would be great.
Sure, we'll do that. So taking your first question, like you were asking about how you're going to manage the SQL files that you have, the SQL Server files that you have for build and commit operations. So the server credentials, see, when I was working with the Azure portal, I gave a few commands. I gave a few commands from the Cloud Shell, where I whitelisted the IP address. And I also had a variable which I created here in my DevOps environment. I went to the variables and there I gave my DB, I gave up the server credentials and everything. Okay, so that helps me to host my files towards the SQL database. That's about answering your first question. And the second question is that to keep this environment to be up, this is just a template. You can find here, this is a template. And this template, I will just get the image only. I'll get an image which is said to be health clinic. That's it. Provided I need the services which on which this can be hosted. This has a database at the back end. This has a web app which is running on. Okay. So to spin up these things, I need the services, and that's exactly where I have created the web app. I have created the SQL Server. I have created the container registry and everything. Are you clear?
Yes, but I haven't seen you writing a Docker file manually for building this image, right?
I told you, no, I have given a template. You can find the chat link. We have shared a template, and using the template, we have spinned up. And to create the Docker, to create the Docker image and to create a ACR, that's your container registry and web app for containers all, we have given commands for that, using Cloud Shell. So that command, we will post it on the Teams, okay?
See, are we going to use the same template for every time? We need to write some Docker files, right, according to the application need.
Yes, you need to write it. You have to create a YAML file. You need to say the manifest and everything. So that has to be done by you.
So during the creation of web app, let's say in a Visual Studio, when there is an option of supporting Docker, right? So when it creates the project structure, it gives you the Docker file option as well. and there we can write whatever customized Docker files we want to add, correct?
You can actually do it, Siddharth, but that's not the takeaway for today's session. We are trying to stick towards web app for containers. The one which you're saying is the same which we are working on session one I mean the last week. We were spinning up ARM templates. We were using Docker from Visual Studio and we tried releasing it. But here I'm trying to go up with web app for containers. I'm at a PaaS service. So for that, you can go to the Azure DevOps environment, and from the Azure portal, you can give up the commands and you can spin it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this case, like your container is having the instance of web application and the instance of your SQL Server. Is
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And how about auto scaling? Let's say, is there any provision? Let's say if we are having the lot of traffic coming on our side, then how to manage that?
So for that, DevOps has nothing to do, but you need to go to the Azure portal and you have to make, I mean, the node clusters to be created. No, I can show you in visual so that you can make more sense. See, when I create a Kubernetes service, I need to provision up scaling over here. It's getting loaded. One moment. I'm sorry. It's getting loaded. So you can find the Kubernetes service, which helps you to take some master node and the slave nodes. So your scaling up, that's your auto scale based on the metrics, has to be configured over here.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So my question is I have my GKE cluster which is set up in Google. So I just want to push the containers from Azure DevOps to GKE. Is it been possible?
You can, yes. So you're saying that for Google Kubernetes engine, you need to push the image. Am I right?
Yeah, that's what. Like what you say is like you have the container registry like this. I'll be having the Google container registry in GCP. So I just want to push it through Azure DevOps. Can it be possible?
You can
and the other thing is, I have all the setup in IaaS servers rather than into Linux. So can I build the image in with the help of Azure DevOps?
Yes, you can. Microsoft supports for both the platforms, for open source and for Microsoft's tech stack as well. Since Docker, or since the entire container environment itself is by default towards the open source, I selected here for a Linux environment. But if you want to stick towards Windows Server, still you can do it. Not a problem.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. I could see few people have raised your hands. Please go ahead if you have any questions.
Okay. Thanks for this opportunity. This was a great demo. But can you share or maybe show those links, because I don't have access to the chat?
Oh, sure, Jose. I will do that.
Just to copy.
We will. Can you just drop an email for DearAzure at CodeSizzler.info? Okay, and mark me as well on the mail. We will make sure that we will share the link, and we will also keep you added on the teams. Okay.
Okay. DearAzure.
Yeah, DearAzure at CodeSizzler. You can just see my. You can see my screen. I'm just typing here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hi, Feroz. This is Rajesh. I have a question.
Yeah.
So basically, when you look at all three major cloud providers like Azure or Google or AWS, so they have two kinds of services like container service and Kubernetes service. So I'm new to this Docker and then DevOps. So basically, my understanding is like when you go with container service, so you are provisioning the infrastructure, when you go to the Kubernetes service, so infrastructure provisioning and autoscaling is taken care in that side, or how it is? Basic difference between these two.
See, actually, Kubernetes itself is a part of container. It's not a separate service as such. Container, normally we call it as a infra component. You're going to, just like a VM, you're going to configure the infrastructure. What Kubernetes does is that instead of Hyper-V, you're going to use Kubernetes as a orchestrator engine. That's it. So instead of virtualization layer, right, your Hyper-V, you're going to use Docker engine, that is your Swarm, or you're going to use the Kubernetes engine. That's the only difference.
Hello.
Yeah, that's the only difference that you have. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for this. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Any other questions?